Hey everybody. Okay, well, I thought I'd do something a little different this week since let's see, it is Monday morning, President's Day, and I'm going to do my monthly checklist that I do on Hella. As anybody can tell and who follows me knows, this is an old truck. It's coming up on 70 years old. Very vintage, old mechanical rig, and it was not designed to just be traveling relentlessly like it does with me. You know, they kind of engineered these just for short little hops and to run around a theater of operations. Built really robustly to take a beating, but nobody envisioned them being a cross-country machine that just traveled through all kinds of environments, you know. So anyway, so what that means is I have to keep track of things. And especially since I've made a lot of modifications and repowered and done other stuff that just, I mean, it's all engineered by myself and Paul. So it's not factory stuff, and you have to keep track of it. You have to inspect it. You have to lubricate things, tighten things up, adjust. It's just part of the life with a vintage machine out on the road. And so I thought I'd give you a little glimpse of that. So here we go. I'm a big aviation nut, and something I learned when I started to learn how to fly, etc. No, I don't have a license. No, I can't jump in any old airplane and fly. Could probably get a little single engine airplane off the ground. Landing would not be pretty, but I think I could do it. I flew a bit with friends back in the early 90s when I was working at Pangbourne Field as a line guy, fueling airplanes. Anyway, pilots use checklists to make sure they don't forget anything, and I fell in love with this idea. And since there's so much to keep track of on Hella, there are little things that could become a big thing if you don't pay attention to it. I made a checklist. I've even had to add to it. It's a little magnetic thing. It's great. So I just slap this on the back and I go after my list. So we're going to do that. Time to get dirty. Alrighty. This is where the tools are. So one of the things that tends to loosen up after, I don't know, 10,000 miles or so, depending on the terrain, are the nuts that hold my exhaust pipe up to the exhaust manifold. And I can hear it. Also, I start to get a little backfire. As soon as I hear any backfiring, I know, these guys are loosening up. So we're gonna head under there and see if I'm right. One really wonderful thing about Hella, she's so tall, I only need to jack her up to do anything if I have to get a wheel off. I mean, it's great. Lots of clearance. You get up here. Oh, 9/16, not half inch. You would think I'd have every bolt and nut memorized by now in this rig, but I don't. Okay, that one's tight. That one's tight. That one's tight. Oh, let's move over to the right side. See if you guys are good. Tight. Tight. And tight. Huh? Was something else then, not what I thought. So it might be something to do with a carburetor adjustment or something. Figure it out. Check a couple other things while I'm down here. I don't know if you all remember both my starter bolts. Well, one broke and fell out on Baja. I didn't find out about it till La Paz. Had to jury rig it to retain that last bolt and hold the starter and register. Anyway, I got back to the US and the second one broke and it completely I should have taken care of it. So anyway, especially after that, I've been really religious about keeping track of stuff. I've also had nuts come loose on my driveline on occasion, and bolts. So we always double check this stuff, make sure everything's nice and happy. Looking good so far. Okay, so I've been feeling a little bit of vibration. Check this out. The nuts have fallen off of 2 of my rear drive shafts. Yoke coupling. I carry spares, and this is why. Found a couple spare nuts. I'm going to hold out this bolt and go get some more, because these are my last 2 spares. And yeah, time to put them in. Some of you may recall my master cylinder failed on me on my way down south last fall. That was exciting. Well, ever since, I keep pretty close tabs on this little guy. Access through the floor here. Lots of stuff is in unusual places on this rig versus modern trucks, because the hood area is a lot smaller than modern trucks, so they tuck things like batteries and brake master cylinders in other areas. So let's take a peek-see. Peek, peek, peek. Beautiful. Not leaking. Don't have to add anything. We're good. Yes. I'm going to save you showing checking the oil and coolant and all that good stuff. That's basic, regular stuff. But how interesting that the one time I decide to video this, I find 2 bolts missing out of my rear drive shaft yoke. That's crazy. And one of the other bolts was a little loose. Of course, when you find something like that, I replaced everything, used the thread locker. You go and you check every other bolt, not just visually, but with wrenches all the way through a drive line, jack shaft and the front of the rear drive shaft. Sure enough, I found a few others that were just getting a little loose. And that's because of the vibration caused by losing torque in those 2 bolts at the rear. So there you go. She is not an appliance. This is a kind of vehicle you have to really keep track of. And like when people ride with me on the highway, they know I have a stereo, but I don't use it because I have to hear what's happening. I'm very attuned to the sounds, the vibrations, everything. I just started noticing this vibration, especially on this last trip down to Pacifica, because it's the first time I've done highway speed in a while. And there you go. That's where you find it. So anyway, she's all fixed up. Make a run to the hardware store. Get some more spare bolts just in case. That is life with a vintage rig on the road. Now I had to clean up all the tools, put away all the hardware box and all that stuff. And of course, everything's destroyed inside Hella because I had to dig into the deep storage for my hardware spares. But hey, this is the deal. And checklist complete. Found one big bad guy, took care of it. That's how we roll. All right, so in conclusion, these rigs, these old military rigs from the 40s, 50s, 60s, they're overbuilt big time. They weren't engineered with all the computational power that exists today for vehicles, where you can engineer a lifespan and the stresses the same way at all. I mean, this old stuff, they just overbuilt it so it would work no matter what shit happened, unless you had just a catastrophic failure. And the fact that she was cruising along with 2 of the 4 bolts compromised that hold the drive shaft to the rear yoke, that's just phenomenal, you know. And that's just testament to how this rig works. It's something that's going to work until something just totally fails, and that's always been my experience with it. So that's why I've gotten in this regular habit and discipline of running through the inspection checklist and keeping up on everything. Because so long as I keep up on everything and catch things before they get to a critical point, though obviously I should have caught that when the first nut came off, good God, I avoid the big disasters. So yeah, pretty cool. That the thing will keep working even when it's dramatically compromised. That's kind of classic old truck stuff as it is, you know. I'd be real surprised if it's the same with like a modern truck. If it got compromised that way, I'm betting something would go shebang pretty fast. Anyway, I'm a little biased, I'll admit it. These old rigs are a lot more work. They're not appliances. They're a machine that you have to be attuned to and you have to keep track of and take good care of. But so long as you take care of it, it's going to take care of you. And that works for me.